Hillary Gazzola, who is also here, have been responsible for putting together a new element of the conference, our training day, which takes place on Sunday. And I wanted to give Steve the opportunity to give you a brief overview of the training because it's really great and a critical part of the whole experience.
All right. Thank you. All right, so how many people here are actually already signed up for ELC? Show of hands. Excellent. All right, that's good. So when we decided that we wanted to put together this first ever training day, which is occurring on the Sunday before the main conference, right? This is one of a number of things about this year's conference that are completely brand new. When we decided we wanted to do this, we went out to companies and agencies and asked them to volunteer training courses, and we said, look, we want you to recommend or put together for us training courses that people can't get and can't find here in the DC area. Give us topics that are interesting and are germane, but that have a twist or an edge or something that makes them unique or interesting or really compelling, frankly, to make it worthwhile for people to spend their Sunday in training before the main conference. And so what we have here is we have a dozen different courses, half and full day courses on a range of topics at prices. It's an extra charge to take the classes, but at significantly below market rates. Anything that you would find, even if you could find them here in the DC area, would be much more expensive than the prices that you'll pay here at the conference. And you can get PDUs and continuous learning credits, 4 for a half day, 8 for a full day, in addition to everything that you can get going through the conference. And the topics are amazing. So let me just give you a couple of quick examples. How many people here, how many of you who are leaders or corporate executives really understand your responsibilities as it relates to cybersecurity? Show of hands. How many people really understand your responsibilities? Your corporate responsibilities, your strategic responsibilities, your legal responsibilities, right? Not many hands go up. How many of you would find it interesting to take a half-day course with Richard Spires to get you up to speed on what your responsibilities really are from a corporate, strategic, legal perspective? Show of hands. Everybody's hands should be going up right now. Here's another one. How many people here, show of hands, how many people here find cyber warfare interesting? You gotta find cyber warfare interesting. But how many people here, how many of you would be interested in taking a half-day course on cyber warfare strategies as they apply specifically to civilian federal agencies? Now that's cool stuff. That is something you are not gonna find anywhere else. Last example here. How many people here, by show of hands, are familiar with behavioral economics? You know, there's a number of people here. For those of you who aren't familiar, behavioral economics is a relatively new field. It's garnered a couple of different Nobel Prizes in the last 10, 15 years. It combines psychology and economics and helps to explain why human beings are irrational in assessing risk to make decisions. So think about this. How interesting would it be to take a class that discusses how you apply human irrationality specifically to large-scale change management programs, right? That's the kind of stuff that we've got going on here. These are classes you're not going to find here in the DC area. And so the point here is, as you sign up for the conference, make sure that you're signing up for your training on the Sunday. And if you've already signed up for the conference, you can go back and sign up for the training. We won't stop you. We've got a lot of great classes. We want to make sure that they're full. The rooms that they're going to be in are huge. They're each one is the size of this room, so there's nothing in the way of any sort of limits in terms of attendees for any of these classes. So that's what we've got going on.
Don't you love this enthusiasm? What an incredible program that they have put together. So can we go to the next slide? I didn't want to close out this conversation without giving you just a little bit of an idea of the overall conference day by day, but most importantly, our plenary and keynote speakers. We have a fantastic speaker opening the conference Sunday night, Jack Aldrich, who is a futurist, author, and frequent speaker on these topics. We also have Dana Deasy, the DoD CIO, keynoting one day. We have Margaret Weichert will be keynoting during our Monday lunch program. We have Leslie Field, Emily Murphy, and Margie Graves moderating a panel on the final morning discussing the TMF and how agencies are applying for those funds and the success that they're having. So that's just a few of the, and Deputy Secretary Sensky, also Wednesday morning, because a lot of the conversation that we're going to have during the conference is going to focus on the successes and the progress that USDA as the Lighthouse Agency for the Centers of Excellence is making, and we'll be sharing that with the group as well. So, more than 190 companies have already signed up to attend. We have more than 25 government agencies who have already registered to participate. The question today is, will you be there? And if you are at all motivated and excited now after this presentation, there is a table outside, so please see the ACT-IAC staff and sign up and join us there. Looking forward to seeing you. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Chuck, Susan, Steve, for those presentations. It's my pleasure to introduce our recent past chair of IAC, Mitzi Mead. And it's been a pleasure, by the way, working with Mitzi when I was the vice chair and she was chair. And we continue to collaborate as I've stepped into this role. Okay, so please, she's going to introduce our keynote speaker.
Thank you, Richard. Good afternoon, everybody. I am really excited to be here to introduce Max Everett. We met a couple of months ago when Rocky and Sandy, we were doing government outreach, and we went to meet with a lot of CIOs, and we really didn't know Max, and we wanted to introduce him to ACT-IAC, so we went in to meet with him, and while we were there, we asked him to speak. So he's already spoken at one ACT-IAC event. He's here today to speak, be our government speaker. We haven't had anybody from the Department of Energy speak at a membership meeting in a long time, so it's great to have him here. Additionally, he is going to be speaking at ELC. So whatever he says today, we'll see what he's got to say in 3 weeks. One of the things about Max that I didn't know as I read his bio is that I didn't realize that he had been in the federal government before. So when he accepted his job in July of 2017, he knew what he was getting into, and he took it anyway. Max is the CIO of the Department of Energy, where he oversees the department's information technology portfolio, serves as an advisor to the Deputy Secretary and the Secretary, and leads and manages the various functions within the Office of the Chief Information Officer. Prior to that, he's served in many positions in industry, and as I was saying, in 2008, he served as the Chief Information Officer of the Office of Administration at the White House. He's also held additional technology leadership roles at the Department of Commerce and National Special Security events. And very importantly, he is from the great state of Texas, which he loves. He received his BA degree from University of Texas and his JD from the University of Houston, and is a member of the State Bar of Texas. Please, let's give a warm ACT-IAC welcome to Max. We're so glad to have him today.
Am I on? I am on. All right, so I will try and be, if you don't mind, pretty informal. If I knew Barry was here, I would have done slides and made him run them in the back for me. So I'm going to be informal and kind of short, and then give a chance for Q&A. Again, as some folks know, I could talk all day if you want, but I did want to give a chance for a little bit of Q&A here. So let me just talk real briefly about what we're working on at Department of Energy. And I'll put in a framework. You already heard a couple of folks mention the President's management agenda, which frankly I think is a good framework to talk about what we're doing. It's pretty common with some tweaks because we like to be very special and unique at Department of Energy. So the first one obviously is IT modernization. Everybody likes to spend time talking about it. One of the key ones for us, of course, just almost more from a cultural perspective than anything else, is the Technology Management Fund. I'm not going to tell you too much about that today because you'll have to come to ELC where I'll talk more about that in detail. But I will tell you that the Technology Management Fund, we got about a decent amount of money, but we didn't just do it for the money. There were a lot of other reasons, a lot of cultural reasons that we think are going to help us move along in the right direction on how we manage IT. And I think that's what's the most important part about that. I think you're going to hear a lot about that at the ELC, certainly when you hear from Margie and Maria and some other folks about the importance of that. But a couple of other pieces on IT modernization that I'll mention. One of them, actually interesting enough, hearing Chuck talk about ICAM. So I don't know how much you know about the Department of Energy. We're federated to the point of more confederated than anything else. With our national labs and different programs, we are a very distributed environment. And so ICAM, frankly, is one of the key things that we're having to really grapple with as a department if we're going to work together as a single department. And that's the direction that our secretary has given. How do we do that kind of collaboration with 17 national labs spread all over the country, with different program offices who all have different levels of risk and very, very diverse missions. So ICAM is one of the key things we've been working on for quite a while, but that collaboration piece, frankly, is very important to us. We right now we've got a chicken and the egg problem. We don't necessarily historically have a culture at Department of Energy where programs formally worked with each other in the ways that they should have. And so as a result, we don't have the technical tools that allow people to do that, and it just goes around and round. And so that's one of the things we're trying to address in that area. A couple of other things that are big, one of them for us is prioritizing customer service. That's sort of the side of the house I came up in IT. I'm a big believer that customer service drives everything else. And so we're really trying to use that as our focus area. Look, when we talk about modernization, there's none of us that have the resources we need to get where we want to go. And so how we prioritize is really the issue. And for me, the starting point there is the customer. Understanding the mission, what the customer needs, should really be how we prioritize where we're going. And so I've really spent a lot of my last 14 months at the department in my shop working on customer service. I've been not so gently nudging my colleagues around the department that they also need to do customer service. Right? My shop is about that, but frankly, human capital should be about that, acquisition should be about that. Even our friends in general counsel really are supposed to be there to do customer service, which is helping people get the mission done. And so I'm not shy of telling other people when they need to do better customer service, because I'm not shy about asking for input from my customers about my own service. One other thing I'll mention, I think some of you may have seen, the folks, the federal CIO, CIO Council, and others have been working on this Cloud Smart initiative, right? So we had Cloud First, great. We're still not where we need to be. They've tried to change the focus a little, and they're talking about Cloud Smart, which is really simply the idea of cloud is very valuable. I think we're on that road to cloud right now. Cloud's great. But we don't just have to jump there with no reason. Again, we need to prioritize. We need to think about what's important to the mission. And so we're trying to embrace that sort of model. We're really, frankly, moving some of our very first workloads into the cloud right now today. And that's an important element for us because it's going to help me get out of some legacy data centers. It's going to give me a lot more resiliency as a department. And again, when you look at the Department of Energy, we've got, I think last count was about 97, 98 facilities in 27 different states. Cloud makes sense for us. We're really distributed, and so cloud really makes sense for us. And we're very fortunate because we have the national labs. Many of them are really much farther along on that road into cloud. They've been doing it for a while. They're actually pretty good at it. And so we're trying to leverage them where we can to get ourselves on our federal systems more quickly moved out to cloud. So that's a little what we're looking at in IT modernization. The second part is data. And I'll simply tell you again, one of the great values that DOE brings to the taxpayers and the federal government is data. We've got our national labs are constantly creating data of every form and kind you can imagine. And so one of the things we're starting to look at, I've just now formally got a chief data officer in my shop. And so we're just now starting to think about strategically as a department, what is our data and where is it located? It's sort of scattered all over the universe. I was just out in West Virginia at a facility yesterday where we've got literally thousands and thousands of boxes of data in paper sitting around. And so how do we pull some of that out that brings value back to our other federal partners, out to the stakeholders, out to citizens, and get that out where they can use it. That's one of the things we're grappling with, is understanding where that data is. Of course, that's also important to me because I want to protect that data. But if I don't know where it is and I don't know what it is, it's a little bit hard to do. And so we're trying to get a broader picture as a department of where that data is so we can start to understand that value. The second piece of data that we're focused on, and again, I think you saw a mention of that at ELC, is understanding things, our cost for services, right? So if you look at things like TBM and other things, those are going to be a critical path for us to success. If I can't tell my customers, and frankly, I can't tell them right now with the necessary fidelity, how much does it cost for a desktop? How much does it cost for an email server? How much do these services that I provide my customers cost? If I can't tell them that, I can't really do my job very well. And I can't really move forward in modernization if I don't know those basic facts about how I do my job and serve my customers. So TBM is certainly not the only way to do that, but it's certainly a valuable one, and we know a lot of partners in the federal environment who have great experience in that. And so we've tried to make some dramatic work in more quickly getting into that model where we can start to look at our IT cost towers and understand how we can do things better. And then frankly, it lets us compete against our federal peers a little bit. There's talk about shared services. I don't use the phrase shared services because if you're like me, you have some negative connotations to that. But what I do believe is that there are some things that there are people who are really good at and that we should be looking to those models. And so I think there are a lot of opportunities in federal government where a particular department or group is really good at doing something that we should be able to go leverage that. And we're starting to do that in government. And my preference is we do that organically. Let's let people compete. Let's let people do what they're really good at, show their expertise. And then if we're going to be open and honest and we know our own costs, if somebody else can do SOC or desktop as a service or whatever it might be cheaper than I can and better than I can, I don't have a lot of excuse not to go use them if I'm a federal partner, other than the old thing of, well, I just want to own my own stuff. And I don't think that's very,